Party people, listen up. This episode is for you. Joining us today on Live with Ty is Cameo. Now, she played basketball at the University of Alberta. But the reason why she's on the show today is that she founded not one, but two companies. One was Best Marketing Company. The other one is the Bender Extender. You're going on a bender, you're tossing back a couple. Her company specializes is handing you a pill that the next morning is not something you dread, but rather look forward to. So once she joins up, we're gonna get right into it. It's gonna be one hell of an episode. But before we get there, I have to urge you guys, 90% of you guys who watch this content aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you're watching, pause the video right now, hit that subscribe button so we can keep growing and I can keep getting you cooler guests and telling you even cooler stories.
Live with Ty starts now.
She is here. Let's get it started. Super happy to have you on the show. How's your day going so far?
It's going good. Happy Friday. How's yours?
It's going awesome. Do what I love, so I can't complain.
I was going to say there's worse things, yeah.
Yeah, there's worse things. So this first question I'm going to ask you is going to throw you a little bit for a curveball, but it's a segment that you're going to do at the end, but we start every episode. So it's called Hot Takes with Ty. So the last guest says something athletically related. Most people don't agree with them, and that's a hot take. So this last guest, he said, most athletes would actually enjoy if they transitioned from their sport to jiu-jitsu. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? I don't have much experience with jiu-jitsu or context of it. Like, I couldn't even, if I'm envisioning it. But, I mean, anything that takes a lot of, physical application and discipline, which I believe it does, then, yeah, I would agree that an athlete would enjoy that process. I don't know if they would necessarily choose that over their, chosen sport, but I think anything... I mean, I didn't think I'd enjoy golf coming from a basketball player, and I love it, so anything can happen.
Okay. I like that. So tell me a little bit more about your journey into basketball. That's your athletic background. What made you fall in love with the sport?
Man, it's kind of a funny story because when I was in I wasn't playing when I was in grades 4 or 5. I started later. I grew up in a small town, so there just wasn't as much, and it was a while ago, right? So not as much development for younger athletes, and that's okay. My first sport was track and field, which I really enjoyed. But the reason I actually started playing basketball, my mom was the coach, and she was like, Cameo, if I'm going to be coaching every evening or however many nights a week, you have to play. So I was like, oh man, I guess I'll play. And the whole first season, so this would have been grade 5, I didn't enjoy it. And quite frankly, I wasn't very good. And I remember the very last game of the season, scoring what probably was my first basket. And my mom said she could just see it in my eyes, and I could just feel it. And I was like, oh my God. I love basketball. I'm going to be a basketball player. And then I never looked back since. I became very obsessed with it from that point forward and devoted a significant amount of my young life towards getting better at it and training and pursuing that. So yeah, but it was quite funny. My mom forced me into it and it worked.
Wow, that's not a story I've heard before. So when did you know, people like playing sports, in grade school, right? But then when you take it to the collegiate level, it's something different, right? When did you know that was the best step for you?
It's a great question. Growing up in a really small town, I think there was 40 people in my class.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, really, really small.
Town.
Yeah, I know. Oh my goodness, I think my school was 7 to 12, and there was under 300 kids. But anyway, so I loved basketball, and I loved playing sports, and I loved training for it. I just found it one of the most enjoyable things I could do. But when you're in a small town, you're in a bit of a bubble. So I think it was BC Summer Games or something was my first opportunity to go play on a more regional team. And then I realized I was like, okay, wait a minute. I am still I'm pretty good at basketball. And then it was kind of that realization when I got out of the small pond that I could basically hang, that I was like, okay, I knew I wanted to pursue it before, but it kind of got me excited about what's the next level, what's the next team I can be on. A big part of it, I knew I wanted to have, help pay for my education and pursue it at that level, and kind of I can't even remember a point outside of before I started playing where I didn't want to go play collegiate.
Okay, gotcha. So you end up playing collegiately, but then, your career definitely takes off to a little bit of a rocky start with injuries and things like that. That can be hard for athletes, right? So walk me through that journey, because you had this dream, but then kind of life hit you with a different reality. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was, I had such a bizarre college basketball career because essentially from the get-go, I got really injured, and it was weird because I'd never been injury prone in my life. I think I rolled one ankle up to that point.
I know the feeling, man. It's weird.
Right? So suddenly And, I will preface too, I played up in Canada at University of
Hmm.
Alberta, and I was already coming in like a little bit, I had my work cut out for me for sure. Like I was a high recruit, but growing up in a small town, I really didn't like to play defense. So there's a few things that I knew I had to get sorted to really
Yeah,
become
of
a
course.
contributor.
100%.
And it was just from the very get-go, I was injured, and then I was battling injury in my second year. I totally blew my hip out, so
Whoa.
I don't think that was the last day of training camp. So I didn't play. I think I
Was
played in a
it,
couple preseason games.
was your hip a meniscus thing or no?
No, it's a
Okay.
labrum. A labrum
Oh, wait, no, yeah, yeah, labrum. That was my injury. That was my injury. It's
the
crazy.
knee, man.
Sucked. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. The meniscus wasn't my injury. The labrum in my hip was my injury, actually. I
Oh,
just mislabeled it. Yeah. I know the
dude.
feeling, and it's such a tiny thing, but the recovery is like, dude, I'm like, I had this micro tear, and you're telling me I'm out for 8 months? Are
Yes,
you serious? Yeah.
I know, and it's a lot less of a like you tear an ACL, and I'm so grateful my knees were fine, but you tear an ACL and it's very cut and dried. Oh, you tore your
Correct.
ACL, we get you in for surgery, we rehab you, it's about a year. The
Hmm.
hips take so long to figure out and then so long to choose a recovery path because you don't want to do hip surgery, right? You want to
No,
exhaust
you don't.
other options. By the time it's all said and done, it becomes almost a 2-year ordeal, or at least it was for
Yeah.
me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Did they ever misdiagnose you?
no,
Because,
I wouldn't say
okay,
miss. No, we just, being up in Canada, it is a bit of a wait to get an MRI. And again,
gotcha.
I certainly wanted to exhaust my non-surgical options. And of course, they wanted me to too. So no, there was no misdiagnosis. It was just one of those things where you're like, you hope it's, A, B, C, D, E, not
Hmm.
F. And it was.
I
So,
know Zeph. I know Zeph. So during that journey, it can often be hard. You're still going to school. You're still at practices, when you can be. What are some coping mechanisms that you're using or that you have to develop to navigate such a challenging period?
yeah, I found it was really, really challenging when I first wasn't able to play. It was truly an identity crisis, and more in the
Yeah.
sense too that it's like, man, I have all this like passion and competitiveness, and I don't know where to put it
Mhm.
because I can't practice. I mean, I was doing a lot of weightlifting upper body just because, but no, you have all this kind of energy that you want to put somewhere, and
Yeah.
at first it can be easy to not put it anywhere, to put it in negative places, but I think
Hmm.
what I ended up eventually getting to after, quite a few very rocky months, and
Yeah.
my advice to others would be just finding something else that you are passionate about or you have a genuine interest in. And that can be anything. It could be your studies, it could be some sort of part-time job, or maybe it's just like more of a hobby and like an instrument or something. But I found when I was able to find that, which for me was academics and kind of involvement on athletics boards and kind of things like that, that was able to really help me kind of renew that energy and direct that towards something else and feel motivated again, and also
Okay.
feel like, hold on, there's other things in the world that kind of excite me and get me out of bed in the morning that aren't basketball. And that's something that prior to
Mhm.
that point, I think a lot of athletes don't actually know is
Yeah,
the
they don't.
case or can be the case.
And I relate to your journey. Actually, it's so weird. So specifically, so when I tore my hip in my journey, I did dealing with the same things. And you just said the same type of involvement, and you held some of the same roles that I held at my athletic institution. So I tore my hip, right? And I was like, I can't train, I can't practice, but I'm still an athlete. How do I stay involved? So I
Yeah.
took to a lot of leadership positions. So you were president of your athletic department. Same here. And again, being in that adjacent space as well for any athletes watching, it could actually be more eye opening because in some of those leadership roles, you're actually really, really connected to your athletic self because you're working with other teams, you're working with initiatives, and you're really looking at the holistic benefit of your program. So,
Yes.
Cameo, thanks for sharing that. I think that's such a key bit of knowledge that not enough athletes know, and even more importantly, not enough athletes are utilizing because injuries happen, guys. They're bound to happen. And again, you said it in an article that I was reading about you. Like 10% of life is what happens to you, 90% about how you respond. So make sure that you're always being proactive in your response. So, back in your journey, you're battling these injuries, you're about to make a comeback. Then COVID hits. I
I
mean,
know.
you got hit with everything. Please tell me, okay, it seemed like you made it back to the mountaintop and then the whole world got shut down. I mean, what's going through your mind when that's happening?
Oh man, no, and exactly that. Like the timing was
Oh,
borderline comedic. I was injury free, or my injuries were managed. I'd rehabbed. Some of the older guards in my position had graduated. I'm thinking,
oh
it
my
is
gosh.
go time, baby.
This is
And then,
time.
yeah, right. It's my time to shine. And then, yeah, COVID. And up in Canada, we did not, they canceled the season very early in the year. I believe it was September. And we, for the remainder of the year, so no games, we practiced sporadically. The regulations were constantly changing. So sometimes it would be no contact. Sometimes it would be 3-on-3. By the end of the year, we were practicing in full. But that was a challenge. And at that point, I kind of knew I'd accepted. I'm like, this is pretty much the end of my basketball career. But that last year of COVID, I did find in a weird way, like a renewed, sometimes when you practice for that long, practice starts to become something that you have to do and you don't really love it. At least that happened to me. Yeah. But I found that last year, practice was something like every day I was like, oh, I get to get out of the house and play basketball. And like, that was a neat way to end things because especially through all those injuries, much of the time practice was not something I looked forward to. It became a bit of a grind. So that was something like a silver lining that I thought was neat, is that like, I got to end that enjoying the sport in a way I hadn't in a few years, which was neat. And then when it got to the end of that though, I was done my degree. Of course, there'd been times where I'm like, should I do a master's? And that was an option. But for me, my body had been through so much. I wanted to live an active lifestyle for the rest of my life. And it really was at the point where it was like, okay, I could play a couple more years of basketball, but then I may not be able to, hike when I'm 30. Yeah, like it was pretty extreme, right? So I made the decision and
So for a lot of athletes that are to say their athlete careers are coming to an end, something that you did was make practice something that you look forward to. But for a lot of people, the feelings aren't there. What's some advice that you could give to them to help shift their brain to be like, okay, this is coming to an end, and rather see it as something like a task. Get excited about it. What advice would you give to those athletes listening?
A couple of different things. I mean, one, to try to zoom out in those times where you are feeling like, oh, I gotta go do this, or you're maybe not the most excited about your sport, because I have met few people that doesn't happen to at some point or another, is to just try to zoom out and appreciate that you'll be playing that competitive and high level of a sport for a very, very small fraction of your life. And to really appreciate it. And I know, that's more of a mindset. Is that going to help you fully? Hard to say. But I find that's kind of step one. And then really if you're kind of talking about bridging that, like, okay, I'm finishing off my career, I want to finish strong. I do encourage athletes to start thinking about what they want their life to look like after their sport's done. I think a lot of athletes, myself included, was like, I don't want to think about that until they kick me out of my last practice or my last game and I am forced to do so. But I just really encourage people to if you don't maybe have the time to start diversifying, at least think about it. Spend a lot of time, whether you're researching, just talking to other people. So you have a bit of a game plan, at least of things you want to try out that you can pursue once you're done your sport. So it's not such a crisis mode when it does end. Yeah,
so for you, that next opportunity took you, let's say, keeping you involved with your university. Did you ever go through that crisis mode when, okay, your sport's ending, what next do you want to do in life?
I was forced into that crisis very early in my second year of university, actually, because I was staring at a year plus without playing and potentially even more than that. So that is when I was forced to do that and started getting involved in those other areas like we talked about, because I also had a realization throughout that process, and not to make it seem like that was an easy process. Like it was rough,
not
right?
It's not at all.
Before things kind of got optimistic for me and I realized there was other things, they were very, very, very bad, and it was quite the negative trajectory, right? But anyways, once I was able to find some of these things, I also had a bit of a realization that, so much about playing your sport is about the varsity experience and is about your teammates and the community. Again, something that's only occurring for a very finite period of your life. So when I was able to kind of wrap my head around the idea that, okay, I can't make an impact or apply myself on the court, but I certainly can apply myself and make an impact in my varsity community and in the school's athletic presence within the greater community or within the school itself, I was able to see that as a different but a worthy goal that I could really apply myself to, and that kind of helped me with that transition because it was just basically a refocusing.
When you're going through those transitions, so you got injured, you're figuring out what you want to do with your life after sport, now you're actually navigating your life after sport. A big component for a lot of athletes is that team element, right? But the journey that you are on is individual. So who are some of the people that you're chatting with, if it's not your teammates, to help you navigate this journey that you're going on?
I find older athletes, other retired alumni, those are the most helpful, because I found trying to speak to others that hadn't played high level sports, they didn't understand and they couldn't understand,
Yeah.
right? Like they want to be as helpful as they can. And of course that's appreciated, but they didn't, talking to your teammates, of course, they're always a great support system, but they're not going through, maybe some of them are, but most of them are not going through what you are, or may not be at your time. So I always like to talk to someone who's been there, done that, and likely enough down the road ahead of you that they've found their career or their passion or whatever it is, and they can guide you through the rockiness and give you hard stop advice on what they do, and also be sympathetic to what you're going through, because it's not for the faint of heart. Like it's a really serious transition.
Is that something that you still practice to this day?
Talking to people who have gone before me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. That's like my absolute favorite thing to do. And now it's more transitioned to like a business standpoint. So I love having conversations with people that are even, 30, 40 years ahead of me, retired. I think it's so interesting.
I gotta start doing that. I like that.
I love those ones in particular. And of course, talk to people like a little bit older too, but they have such a different perspective because it was a different time. And I love the like fundamentals and the character pieces that were such a big role in their success. So yeah, I think that's something that I plan on doing for my whole life and certainly get a lot of value from.
Okay, awesome. So guys, for those of you who are listening, again, mentors. If you don't have them already, reach out to people. They're in your network. You just haven't been looking, and make sure that you're talking to them. So your first opportunity right outside of college, right? You did that for a little bit. Tell me about what that experience was like, but also what about that experience made you want to kind of launch off and do something as your own? Because in an article I was reading about you again, you said that when you first got to college, you wanted to be athletic director, and now you're a 2-time founder. So something's not adding up to me. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. So my auntie is currently an athletic director, and growing up, I was like, man, I want to be like her. I want that job. I want to be in business, but I want to be in sport. And so that's why I took business school. That's why I was doing all of these things. I was working summer jobs with the athletics department at U of A.
Okay.
And I was basically just trying to groom myself to become this role. So after I graduated university, I was offered a job at the athletics department, which I was super, super stoked about. And I did that for about a year. And it was a great experience. I mean, I learned your first job, you learn a ton. It was really neat. But what started to happen in that time is I realized, I was like, wait a minute, like, I just want to do more. And I want to work across wider industries and learn at a faster rate. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that at a university. And I think part of it too is even, you're playing there 5 years and then suddenly you flip over to the staff side. It's like you're there, but nothing's the same. So I think there's an element of that. But really the big part was I realized I'm like, okay, I want to do something. I like the subject matter. It was a marketing position. I really enjoy marketing, but I wanted to be able to expand on that. And then transparently too, I'm like, man, I really enjoy the idea of travel, golf, and of really just like growing something that is my own. So when I realized, I'm like, okay, and I'm laughing how big of a factor wanting to golf whenever I wanted, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, so I was like, if I want these, I kind of reverse engineered. I'm like, hey, sounds like I should probably go out on my own and start a company. And at the time, marketing was a very, I want to say accessible route, because it was right when businesses kind of realized, like, wait a minute, I need Instagram and I need Facebook and I need a website.
TikTok shop, what?
Yeah, they're like, wait a minute, like, you're telling me. So it was a time where it was just, I don't want to use the word easy, but there's a big opportunity with very low barriers to start working that. So that's when I started my marketing company, and that's what that transition looked like. And a huge blessing was the university was willing to actually come on as a client. So I was still contracted to take care of their marketing.
That's awesome.
It was a huge I'm so grateful that they were willing to do that, because it was like, it made the transition to entrepreneurship a lot less daunting, because I had this contract in place that I was familiar with good relationships, and I was able to build from there.
So you were partnering with the university again. We'll get into the other aspects, but you keep this theme of golf keeps coming up. So tell me about that journey, and how did you get so into that sport?
I think it was the last practice I had for basketball. My birthday was, I don't know, a week later. And I was living in a house of other athletes, and we all retired the same year. And we all said, we're like, you know what? We're all in business. We all are competitive. Why don't we take up golf? So I asked for golf clubs for my birthday / grad gift. And we all got clubs, and we were all like green. Most of us had never golfed in our lives, but we just kind of knew it's something we wanted to try out. We all got group lessons. And I got the fever. I just love golf now.
Oh, and then that was it.
End
That
of
was it.
story. Like, there's not, and
No
it's so funny because
story.
I'm not even that great at golf, and I'm not great at all. And there's even been times in the last few years I've hardly been playing, but it was one of those things that, like, basketball ends, and then you start this new physical hobby that, like, scratches that
Mhm.
competitive itch because you can work on it all the time. It
Yeah,
still
you
has
can.
physical, like, literacy, so it's founded a really another kind of tip, I guess, or strategy for, like, coping with that post athletic career is
Gotcha.
is I think that's why a lot of people start running marathons or getting a CrossFit to
Yeah,
be competitive
dude,
with
so many of my
yourself.
teammates do that now. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, you ran like what, 30 miles? You
Oh,
know?
couldn't be
Wait,
me,
does
man.
the,
I haven't
wait,
broke
does
a
that
run
mean
since my
what?
last practice.
Does that mean you're a big fan of the Happy Gilmore movies?
I did just what you did. I hate to admit it. I hadn't watched Happy Gilmore 1 until 2
Okay.
came out, and then I was like, I'd like to watch this, so I should probably go back and watch 1. So yeah, they were great. They were feel good, but I hadn't actually watched it prior to that, which I'm embarrassed to admit.
Okay, gotcha. Well, if you have, since you've watched both now, you know the first one is way, way better. The second one, it was something. It was something,
It was
but you know,
something. There was the nostalgia element in there, but yeah, it
there
was a
was.
bit corny.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was thrown off when he's like the first scene, the wife dies. I'm like, okay, what? Like
Me
that
too.
was she's just dead, just off her. And I love her from Modern Family, so
Me
I'm like,
too.
why? I'm like, what is going on? Just off her, and then the story begins. But that's for a different conversation. So, in this business, you're creating your own company. A big part, with your athletic journey is that team element. And you got to the position where you're hiring your team, you're going to expand. In your business, when did you know that it was time to get some help? And also, how did you go about choosing the right teammates for your first company?
Great question. I noticed I was totally solo in my first company, so it's very much just a sole proprietorship, kind of solopreneur for the
Yeah.
entire first year.
Okay.
And it got to a point where the workload list only grew, and it was, legitimately 12, 14-hour days, 6, 7 days in a row, or 6, 7 days of the week. And so I was like, okay, so yeah, the workload, but I also started to recognize that, like, the barrier to growth was me, right? As
Okay.
much as delegation can be challenging when you're starting your first own company, but I realized I'm like, the variable between, like, where I'm at now and where I'd like this to go is simply myself and the limits I'm placing on capacity and skill, things like that, by not choosing to bring other people on board. So that's when I realized that it was time, that, and obviously to get a little bit more balance back. So
Gotcha.
my first hire was actually someone I'd worked with in a previous role and a friend of mine. And I know, you can go either way when it comes to working with friends. I've had a
Controversial.
very good
Okay.
experience with it, and I've hired multiple friends at this point. You have to be very specific on the type of friend, and you have to do a lot of thinking there, and you have to be, have some pretty open conversations going into the relationship to
Of course.
make sure that regardless of what happens, the friendship is preserved.
Mhm.
Anyway, so that's my first hire was someone that I
Oh,
no fire, no fire,
I was gonna say, hey,
no fire
contradiction.
teammates. Thank
Okay,
goodness.
that's good. Knock
Yeah.
on wood. Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. None on the horizon either. But yeah, that's how I made my first. And then 1 to 2 was hard because it realized all these systems or ways of doing
Mhm.
things were just in my head. Not
Yeah.
that much is documented, right? So you do have to take a few
True.
steps back to kind of get someone else up to speed. And then I found 2 to 3 people was that times 10, in the sense that, 2 people you can kind of just bounce back and forth. But once there's a third, then you really need to kind of start having a legitimate organizational setup, structure, way to access things going on. So that was just a really neat journey from 1 to 2 to 3 plus, and surprising different stages, but really, really cool and very labor intensive, but very
Yeah.
worthwhile.
Yeah, of course. And it's similar to, let's say, your athletic journey, in the sense that knowing yourself when you answer the first hot take question, it was hard, it's challenging, it's something you have to endure, right? So what were some key characteristics amongst your athletic journey that you found yourself implementing straight away into your first business?
2 things. One, just the willingness to work hard that athletes have. Working hard and being very uncomfortable and applying yourself over a very long period of time is something that you've been doing for probably the better part of a decade by the time, or at least I had been by the time I reached that point. So that's a skill that I do think that your threshold for work is a lot higher when you've played varsity sports, because, like I said, you're just used to being in that position pretty much every day for a very long time.
True.
And then something else that I find super benefit, I know don't get me wrong, there's a million characteristics and traits that come from playing sports that carry through, but these 2 ones I really like. So that one,
Okay.
and then the second part that's similar is that I find when you're an athlete, you get comfortable with doing things every single day or working at things every single day for a very long time without gratification. Do you know what I mean? You practice your jump shot and you're not getting better or necessarily
Yes.
leaps and bounds better any single day,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if you put the time in over a very prolonged period of time, that the
Correct.
result that you're searching for will arrive if you're doing it right. And I think that in this day and age, that's something that is waning because we're all used to instant gratification and watching
Correct.
processes occur very fast and skipping that process in order to get results. So that's something that I really value from my athletic career is just you're okay with delayed gratification and you're okay with committing yourself for very long periods of time before any reward or payback. And I think that just goes a long way in the entrepreneurial journey because many entrepreneurial journeys follow that kind of route where it's like you're doing so much and you're receiving so little until the hockey stick effect, and then you find yourself getting
On the
paid
scale of
dividends,
it.
right?
100%. And I think that's why I think athletes are drawn to the founder world because again, it's the grind. I think I was talking with one of my mentors. It's like you have to fall in love with the shit pipe, and I was like, "What's the shit pipe?" It's like you're crawling through a pile of shit. You see the light, you don't know when you'll reach it, but you're just crawling along. And I think athletes in their career, it's not that they love to do it, but they're just used to it. That's normal for them. So in business, like, yeah, this is just kind of part of the process. So thanks for shouting that out. So something that I liked in your journey specifically is that you're able to grow your team, but then you were also able to grow it to a level where you could start looking at other things, other passion, other interests. And that's a hard transition for, let's say, a lot of founders because with everybody's first company, it's your baby, right? You're like, oh, stay away. It's like, this is precious to me. So when did you know this is something that you could afford to do? And how do you also, let's say from a mental perspective, handle that where it's not handing off the reins, but it's trusting the people and the team that you've curated that's working under you?
Yeah, that has been one of the neatest kind of parts of the process, I would say. So essentially, I guess to kind of walk through what that looked like is after a few years of getting the first company, the marketing company established and having really great team members come in, I started to realize that this is my favorite part, is that the people I've hired are so much better than me at the job. Like they're better at building websites, they're better at graphic design, they're better. And so that was freeing, and I'm lucky that I have great talent on the team. But so one is like, okay, realizing that they're better at me at those tactical skills, realizing that in order for the business to grow, you reach that point where you have to get out of the weeds and you have to be able to work on the business versus in the business, I think is what they say. So it just, rather than me in my field was on Photoshop and writing content, doing whatever I was doing, it was like, okay, I need to get to a position where I'm doing that as little as I possibly can so that I can focus my efforts on, okay, whether it's sales, whether it's organizational structure and leadership and focal point, whatever that might be. And then to your kind of initial question, also, when you're able to do that and free yourself of this everyday tactical work, then that's when you have the opportunity to start looking around and seeing cool projects and seeing other companies or spin-offs that might be of interest or things you want to pursue as well. And whether that's within the company you're running or another company, that was my case. Yeah, so that's kind of that process of that. But one thing I'll say with that whole journey is that you can't negate being in the weeds. It's very important. I'm very happy that I spent years doing things that I don't want to do anymore because you understand how they work and you understand how to train someone for them and you understand the time it should take and the frustrations of it. So it's a very essential part that cannot be skipped, but it is very rewarding to get out of it.
Okay, got you. The company now that you started, Bender Extender, again, love the title, by the way. And it's unique. I love the logo as well. There's like that nostalgia, like 80s, 90s look, from the company logo. Yeah. And I think every founder has a cool startup story. This story has to be so cool in the Bender Extender. Please tell me, while working at your company, how were you able to see this and like, nope, this is it. Tell me about that.
It is... It's less of a cool story than it probably should be, but it kind of has two parts to it. So the first part that's more geared towards my first business, and I had a really big interest in influencer creator marketing, big interest. And I was spending a lot of time, I was actually kind of pursuing a different startup concept where I was just spending a lot of time researching, developing kind of systems for creator marketing. And in that journey, I realized all sorts of things. That's another conversation. But I also realized that, wow, to be able to create a truly marketable, what I felt was like a marketable product at its core versus trying to market existing products that maybe weren't built ideally in that capacity would be so neat. And I'd like to run some experiments on what I think that this very marketable product would be and where creator marketing could take it and where these other marketing angles that I'd been, working on over the last, I guess, 3 years at that point. So that was kind of like the origin for my my interest in a different company and in a product specifically. So I had that kind of in the back of my mind, but I had no idea. I had no products in mind. Yeah, it was kind of more of a pipe dream. It'd be cool if I had my own product to do this with. It was literally just a group chat situation with three of my really good friends. And we were talking about a boating trip or something. And I made some joke about them just throwing some electrolytes in the drinks and, mixing up a bender extender and carrying on or something like that. And that's all it was. And the one friend responds and she goes, Cameo, is bender extender a thing? And I'm like, I don't think so. I've just been saying it since I was in college. I used to mix Pedialyte and Pink Whitney, and I'd call it the bender extender. So I just been saying it for at this point like 8 years. And I'm like, I don't think so. Let me check. So a couple Google searches, and it did not exist. And we were just said in that moment, we're like, why don't we make it a thing? Like some of them were entrepreneurs in their own senses. They all kind of had an interest in pursuing something neat like that. So we just kind of, that was this time last year, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when it comes to, let's say, the Pedialyte Pink Whitney one, yeah, I definitely know that drink, but we won't talk about that. But anyway, when it comes to that, combining the two, what type of result does that get you?
I mean, that is not like, that was just my joking name for it to stay hydrated while you were drinking.
Oh, while you're drinking.
So that was just kind of like, it was like the two birds, one stone situation. So, get your Pedialyte in, which we were, at the time, my team, we took a lot of Pedialyte if we were drinking.
Yeah, same here.
So that was just that was the origin of that. When it came to real bender extender though, our first idea was, okay, well, let's do an electrolyte. Obviously not an alcohol hybrid, but let's do like a stick pack electrolyte. But we realized pretty quickly that one, a lot of competitors in that space. So it could be difficult to differentiate yourself if you're bootstrapping and you don't have much money, which that was us. And then two, we realized it's actually really expensive to produce stick packs at a small scale, which is what we were thinking. So we're like, okay, scrap that, or not scrap that, but put that on hold to the side for maybe a future product. But what is really easy to make, or not easy to make, but what is more accessible? Pills, a supplement pill. So we're like, okay, hangover pills are something that are on the market. They exist, but there's not very many up in Canada, at least, or there was few competitors. The competitors that did exist were very corporate, very scientific. They certainly weren't, in my opinion at least, embodying party energy and kind of leaning into the ridiculousness of drinking. And we felt there was a positioning opportunity there. And that was the basis. So we're like, okay, this is the name. We're going after bender extender, hangover support being the pill form. And then kind of took it from there. So
when it comes to the actual development of the pill, is this something, let's say, from a scientific perspective, are you having to develop the pill? Or is it, there's a pill that already exists, we're just going to market it differently?
So we did our own signature formula. Thankfully, my co-founder took care of that because he has a background in that.
You're just best friends like a scientist.
It wasn't me. And people should be happy to hear that because I don't have a science background. But no, we did our own signature blend. But what we did choose is, ingredients that support things like liver function, detoxification, energy levels, but not to the point where we're not caffeinating things, right? We don't want you to take this pill and it be an upper or a downer. And, we're all believers in natural health. So ended up going with a strictly supplement with a handful of vitamins, the vitamins just being vitamin B1 and B6. And then from that point, once you have landed on a formula, and this is kind of a funny part. So when we were determining the formula, we would buy the pills and like random pills from, the pharmacy or the drugstore, vitamin B, ginger, whatever. And we would mash them up and we would buy little gel capsules and we'd mix them up and we would just give them to our friends and ourselves. And I called it uncontrolled testing. Because we would just go booze and take these different combinations. Some worked really great. One, we'd use a different B complex and it made your pee neon green. So we're like, that's out. Like that's... So that's how we we spent months and months doing that in different batches. So we landed on a formula that we were happy with, and then we went into production.
Wow, I love that. That's such a unique, I guess, founder story. But it's also sound like, I think in your company, in the ethos of it, it's like it is that party element because again, how you guys landed on your product, it's like, man, this is the 5th weekend. Maybe something has to stick. I can't keep doing this. And you wake up the next day like, oh my god, yeah, you're like, I'm done. And it's like, oh my gosh. Guys, I feel great. And everyone else is like pissing neon green. You're like, lucky you, stick with that one. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. So when it comes to, let's say, the whole bender extender thing, often moments, let's say in startup culture, it can be hard at times, right? So I want to know, it could be with this company or your last one, and this segment's called Locker Room Moment. What was a setback that ultimately thrust you guys forward in either of your companies?
Oh, I got to think of a specific. There's been plenty.
It could be the neon green thing, but maybe it could be a different one.
That thankfully that was more of an oopsies than a setback. We're like, oh, hey, oh, I'm trying to think of. There's been like, it's not for a lack of options. I'm just trying to think of
Of course.
one of the better options because there's been some very pivotal moments. I guess one, I'm actually going to use it from Best Marketing Code because it's very interesting. There was a period of time when I started that I really liked servicing the fun industry, so restaurants and cool brands, shops, hotels, you name it, things like that, that were very fun. But what I was running into was those clients, they had much smaller budgets and they turned over a lot more quickly, and it was very saturated market. Everyone with a marketing company, which are kind of a dime a dozen, wanted to work with
Yeah.
those. So that was creating a bit of a situation that wasn't ideal for business, and an unpredictable scenario. In that and in those kind of frustrations, I actually kind of stumbled upon realizing that industrial style companies, so like blue collar companies, resources, oil and gas, agriculture, that sort of stuff, actually were a great fit for the services we wanted to provide, needing the full suite
Okay.
of marketing. They were used to having a full-time marketing staff, but just one. They often turned over a lot. I won't get into all the details there, but basically through trial and error and through realizing my model does not work, I was able to be kind of forced into starting to service those clients. Now fast forward to where we are today, that's all I work with the exception of a few
Oh,
fun projects.
okay.
Like my marketing company, we say we're the industry leader for industry leaders, and we work exclusively pretty much with resource-based companies, some technology, things like that. I call them the unsexies. And
Hmm.
we've been able to build
The
all of our
unsexy.
systems around them, and it's much more scalable that way and efficient.
And that's not something originally like you weren't, let's say, super happy about, but then now it's turned out to actually be perfect for you guys. So I
I,
love that.
I remember getting reached out to from an alumni actually about, he's like, hey, my company really needs marketing. We're a construction company. And I was like, oh, I
Ugh.
don't know. And it was back when only I was doing it. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm interested enough in the subject matter to do this. But at the time, I remember thinking, but, I'm having these issues with retention and whatever with the other style of clients. Let's give it a go. And it ended up being it's so funny because at the time I wouldn't say it was this, oh my goodness moment. But in hindsight, that was 100% the TSN turning point that basically has shaped the company ever since. So.
Okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
love that story. So when it comes to Bender Expender, that's not something you founded by yourself. So you're working with, say, a partner. What's it like working with a team on a new venture?
It's been, you know what? It's an experience. I've never done anything with partners before. So
Okay.
there's a different dynamic, right? When you're working with a
Hmm.
partner versus with a staff, right? Because, we're not necessarily equals in terms of equity, but you're on a founding plane together. So
Correct.
yeah, it's been a learning experience. At the end of the day, too, one of the positives of it is that these are really good friends of mine. So there is that extra layer of care when it comes to dealing with each other and things around the business, which is just it's been just really positive. It's one of those things too that until you're actually doing a startup, you don't realize just how much they take and just how much of it, what did you say before, the shit pipe?
Yeah, the ship pipe
Yeah.
trudge along.
So there's been, plenty of times throughout the last year where we've had to adjust and change roles and scope and things like that because, you think I want to work on X or I'll be able to do X and you realize it just doesn't align or whatever. So it's a really dynamic journey, and I think it forces you to like become a really great or better communicator and be able to just have really candid conversations and also just like work on complex problems together. So it's just been cool. I suggest it to anyone because I think it develops you so much from just like a business and a relationship standpoint.
Yeah, so in life, a lot of people, something that's really, really important is doing what you love, right? And I could tell from the energy, on the screen here around this Bender Extender, it's something that you love, right? You could tell that you're passionate and I could sense it in your company, but also in just talking with you. So when it comes to Bender Extender, what's some of the most rewarding parts of working on this particular venture?
Love the fact that it is a very tangible thing. I'm looking around because I'm sure there's one somewhere near me. But I love that it's something I've only ever done services in the past. So it's something that we can pick up and look at. So I love that element of it. And I
Hmm.
do like the thing about Bender Extender that is very fun. There's lots of parts that are fun, but there are these moments of gratification the whole way along. So for example, I remember the first time that I was at a restaurant and I had bender extender sitting on the table, and the server, who I'd never met in my life, was like, "Oh my God, I love bender extender. I take them all the time." And I was like,
Ah,
"What?" Like,
yeah.
right? I was like, "That's so cool. We're only two months old." So that's what's been the neatest part, is like, because it's something that's very tangible, you are kind of getting these little wins and these little boosts as you go, and thank goodness, because there's no shortage of very challenging and huge setbacks and disappointments. But that's been something, and two, just being able to, because it's such an active feedback loop too, just being able to like change things quickly. Like we've totally redone our format in the last year. Our new packaging gets in Monday. Like it's a cool environment to stay in tune with, because it just tells you a lot when you're working on it. So yeah, that's been some of the cool stuff.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So what's next for Bender Extender? What can we hope to see?
So where we are looking to go is right now, like internally, our big goals right now are, okay, getting distribution and retail opportunities, because for us, establishing those wholesale deals is massive for a startup's cash flow. And
Massive.
obviously developing our direct to consumer is a big goal of ours, but that takes time and a lot of resources. So being able to also get the retail going and the wholesale at the same time is a great way to supplement that, keep the organization running. So we're looking to get a much larger retail presence, and we're looking to be able to start doing some real like meaningful partnerships in the next 6 months. So,
Okay.
a lot of the first X months, you're just figuring out what works and what doesn't. Now that
Yeah.
we're feeling a bit more secure about the brand and the product itself and the format it's in, now going after some bigger events and figuring out creative ways to get that big exposure and that big brand value with our limited resources. But there's always ways. So yeah, just kind of focusing on like, now that we have this base, what's the next level in terms of getting it out there, retail, wholesale, and then also getting that those exposure boosts and those partnership boosts, working with other brands, etc.
And I saw something also, like you guys maybe have merch, or was that your personal merch? I saw some swimwear. I was like, that's pretty cool.
We do have merch. Yeah, it's kind of fun
Okay.
doing a business in this day and age, because there's a lot of print on demand. So I actually have print on demand options. So this is our on a bit of a
There you
bender
go.
dad hat. Got our bucket hats on our
Okay.
company print.
I love
But
the colors too.
yeah, thank you. It's
Those
such
would
a
kill in LA. I was just in Los Angeles. Those would kill. Like that's the vibe all the
totally.
time.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
Like
And that's
yes.
something that too, like even trying to integrate that step further, I'd really like to do a collaboration with a bathing suit company
Yeah.
and kind of have like our bender, like our vacation line. So they're doing our print or some version of it on their bikinis and board shorts, and then we're doing like kind of a vacation package. So maybe it's your bachelorette, or you're going to Mexico and you get your bikini and you get your bender extender hangover support. And so that's one of our big goals too the next 6 months, is securing some partnerships and starting with some smaller brands at a similar size as us and just working through those. And yeah, so that would be personally something I think would be just so sick.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm excited to see you guys get there. So let's say in 5 years' time, right? You've been working on this. Where can we hope to cross paths again on Bender Expander? What will you guys be in 5 years?
I would like to be in 5 years. I would like to kind of have let's call it the bender market cornered.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is so right now we're just a hangover pill, but I'd like our next step to be, yeah, like a more of an electrolyte kind of support drink. Cause right now, you're buying, okay, I'm probably buying maybe Liquid IV or Water Boy or something.
Yeah.
And I'm
like that.
buying my hangover pills. So that's kind of next step. Then I would like to have a liquor brand that is
Wow.
under Bender Center's umbrella and kind of keep going. And then sometimes we say it as a joke, but I think I mean it. One day down the road, I'd also love to do events like Benderland.
Okay.
And we
Yeah,
also got all the products going. And so yeah, it's fun.
Because you would have the whole market. You'd have the event. You'd be serving the drinks at the event. When people feel, the way with drinks make you feel, you have the solution. So it's kind of like, wow, I'm sensing this bubble of care, right? A unique way of caring for the well-being of your audience. So I think that's beautiful. I think
we got you cornered. So, and one day at a time. Obviously, I don't want to think everything needs to be done now and lose sight, but I would, if we're able to continue to grow as a brand, to bring more and more of these essential parts of the Bender, or let's call it the multi-day event experience, under our umbrella, I think would be really, really neat. And if we get the brand value that I'm hoping for, I think that'll be very doable.
Well, I like that. And I like the word bender. I think, it's real. People understand it. And I feel like there shouldn't be a taboo about it because, again, like, let's say you're someone older, like, oh, don't go on a bender. You're just kind of sad because you can't do it anymore, right? Because your product isn't in their hands yet. So even they're going to have some value for all of that stuff. So the last thing I want to ask is that your company's awesome. I truly love the mission statement, but also how your athletic journey also fueled this entrepreneur spirit that helped create a brilliant product like Bender Extender. So for the people listening, where can they support and where can they find you guys and get their active hands on this Bender Extender?
Yeah, thank you. So right now, the best place to get it is benderextender.com. So that's our own Shopify. We're working on getting on Amazon, but it's processed. So yeah, benderextender.com is great if you do want to try it. You can use Cameo 15, I think is my promo code. There's welcome codes. There's lots of ways to save. And then even if you're not interested in boozing, that's okay, or trying it. But our Instagram handle's just at the Bender Extender, and that's an area that we're getting a lot of traction and every follow counts. So either of those two ways are very much appreciated.
Okay, awesome. Well, Cameo, we've gotten to this part of the episode. So the next guest that is going to be on Live with Ty, we're going to start them off with a hot take just like we did you. And it could be anything in the athletic world. So give me your wildest, craziest sports hot take. I want to hear it.
Oh, I would say that for the bulk of college athletes, you're and again, there's always exceptions to this, but that your stats will not matter. They will not impact your life whatsoever. And I know it can be very, and I say that because I remember when I was playing, I had terrible stats. I was hardly on the court. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this asterisk by my name. I'm going to have, she played pandas, but did she really play? I kid you not, man. No one's even asked me if I was, like, if I'm in a business setting or I meet someone and I bring up that I played college basketball, no one has ever even asked me if I was good. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, so maybe it's not that stats matter, but the reason I say that is because it's a bit of a hot take, because in the moment, you want to be the best you can be, and you should want to be the best you can be. But I just would say that in the scheme of your life, try not to get too hung up on performance, because it's not really indicative of how the rest of your life will go. If you're trying to get drafted by the NBA, you are the exception to that. There's plenty of ways, but that would be my hot take for sports. I wish someone would have told me that at the time. It would have been very liberating. I spent a lot of time concerned about that and thinking that I wouldn't, people wouldn't take me seriously because my college basketball career wasn't that good. Not the case.
Okay, got you. And we'll leave it at that. Cameo, thank you so much for joining the show. I hope you enjoyed your time and our conversation as much as I did. Again, awesome product, and I think you're going to kill it. And when you have events, I will be there personally in attendance. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You're a great interviewer and you have great energy, and I just really appreciate it. And like I said in our last call, I really do believe that these conversations are invaluable to young athletes and those going through the process a few years behind us. So I'm happy that you're doing this. And if there's anything I can do to help offline or supporting events or marketing or anything like that, you let me know.
Okay, we'll do, Cameo. And again, keep killing it. Also, keep dreaming big. That's what I do starting the show. You do it with your company, and then the worlds will collide. All right?
Amen. I love that.
All right, then. You take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
There you guys have it. That was Cameo. Her company is called Bender Extender. Guys, when it comes to the guests on Live with Ty, I don't think there's been a cooler product on the market. So definitely be sure to check her out and hear her story. And also share this episode with that one friend who gets hungover all the time but loves drinking. Because there's a product that's out there specifically for them. Once again, this was another episode of Live with Ty. Make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. And until the next time, I'll see you. Peace.